A millionaire asked his virgin best friend for a child, but when she surrendered her whole heart and body, he realized he couldn't let her go. Hi, my beautiful family. Before anything else, please join me in this quiet prayer. Dear God, as I step into this journey of healing, be my protector, guide the hands of those who care for me, and wrap me in your mercy. May I return to my family, renewed, safe, and smiling. Amen. This is your Mr. Peter speaking from the soul. For the next 2 to 3 days, I'll be away in New York for a medical checkup, but don't let that worry your hearts. I'll be back in just 3 days, by God's grace, ready to sit with you again and pour love into every story. I know, not seeing me today might leave some of you feeling down or disappointed, and I truly understand. But my beautiful family, you are the reason I keep going. Your love lifts me. Your prayers protect me. While I'm away, James will be here to keep our bond strong. So hold on to me with your hearts, and I promise I'll be home soon. Now let's begin today's story, with faith, with love, and with all the warmth we share.
Death had never looked so beautiful in a $3,000 suit. John Kidwell stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, watching the city sprawl beneath him like a kingdom built on bones. At 45, he commanded a tech empire worth $12 billion, owned properties on 3 continents, and could buy anything his heart desired. Everything except the one thing that mattered: time to undo the greatest mistake of his life. 2 years. That's what the doctors had given him before his body became a tomb. But John knew the truth. He'd been dying for 15 years, ever since the night he'd chosen fear over love, and lost the only woman who'd ever seen his soul. The rare genetic condition coursing through his veins was just biology finally catching up to his heart. But there was one last option. One impossible, heartbreaking, soul-destroying option. The elevator chimed softly behind him, and John's reflection shifted in the glass as the doors slid open. He didn't need to turn around to know who had arrived. He'd recognize that gentle footstep anywhere, even after all these years of pretending they were just friends. "You look tired," Nana Lamb said, her voice carrying that same warmth that had haunted his dreams for 15 years. "When's the last time you slept?" John turned slowly, and as always, the sight of her hit him like a physical blow. Nana, at 28, was even more beautiful than she'd been in college. Her dark skin glowed with health, her curly hair framed her face like a halo, and her eyes held depths he'd never allowed himself to explore again. She wore a simple blue dress that hugged her curves, and John found himself remembering another blue dress, another lifetime, when they were young and believed love conquered everything. "Sleep is overrated," he said, managing a smile that felt like broken glass in his chest. "Besides, I have something important to discuss with you." Nana moved closer, concern creasing her brow. She'd always been able to read him better than anyone, which made what he was about to ask even more impossible. "John, what's wrong? You've been acting strange for weeks. Knox is worried. Your mother keeps calling me, and Wade..." John's jaw tightened at the mention of Nana's older brother. Dr. Wade Lamb, renowned surgeon, the man who'd been secretly monitoring John's condition for the past 6 months. The man who'd delivered the devastating news that had led to this moment. "How is your brother?" "Busy saving lives, as usual." Nana settled into one of the leather chairs facing his desk, crossing her legs with unconscious grace. "Though he's been asking about you lately, said you missed your last few appointments." John's heart hammered against his ribs. Of course Wade would notice. The brilliant surgeon had been John's private physician for years, one of the few people who knew about the experimental treatments, the desperate searches for cures, the slow countdown to oblivion. But Wade didn't know about the final option, the one that would destroy his sister's life to save John's. "I've been reconsidering some treatment options," John said carefully, moving to his desk. He pulled out a thick manila folder, his hands steadier than he felt. Inside were medical reports, test results, and documentation that had taken him months to compile. Documentation that proved Nana Lamb was his only hope for survival. Treatment options. Nana leaned forward, her brown eyes searching his face. John, what aren't you telling me? If you're sick, I'm dying. The words fell between them like stones, shattering the careful pretense they'd maintained for over a decade. Nana's face went pale, her hands gripping the arms of her chair. What do you mean, dying? Her voice was barely a whisper. John opened the folder, his movements precise and controlled. He'd practiced this conversation 100 times in his head, but now that the moment had arrived, every word felt like swallowing razors. I have a rare genetic condition, Kleiser-Hoffmann syndrome. It's degenerative, incurable, and terminal. The doctors give me 2 years, maybe less. Nana stared at him in stunned silence, tears already forming in her eyes. John wanted to go to her, to hold her, to comfort her the way he had when they were young. Instead, he remained behind his desk like a coward, using furniture as a barrier between them. 2 years, she repeated, her voice breaking. But surely there's something. Experimental treatments, clinical trials. I've tried everything. John's fingers tightened on the folder. Everything except one option, one possibility that could save my life, but... He stopped, unable to continue. But what? Nana was on her feet now, moving around the desk toward him. John, whatever it is, we'll figure it out. I'll help you. We'll fight this together. We. That simple word nearly broke his resolve. There was no we anymore. Hadn't been for 15 years, not since the night everything fell apart and he'd chosen his pride over his heart. But now, faced with death, all his carefully constructed walls were crumbling. The only potential cure involves stem cell therapy, John said, his voice hoarse. Specifically, stem cells from umbilical cord blood. The cells would need to come from a child who's a perfect genetic match. Understanding dawned in Nana's eyes. A child. Your child. Not just any child. John pulled out a thick stack of test results. I've had hundreds of women tested secretly over the past year. Genetic compatibility for this condition is incredibly rare. Out of nearly 300 candidates, only one was a perfect match. Nana's breath caught. Who? John met her eyes, seeing his own pain reflected back at him. You. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Nana stared at the test results, her name highlighted in yellow marker on page after page of medical jargon. Her hands trembled as she read, processing the implications. You want me to have your baby, she said finally. I'm asking you to save my life. John's voice was steady, but inside he was falling apart. I know what I'm asking, Nana. I know it's impossible, selfish, cruel, but I'm desperate and you're my only hope. Nana set down the papers, her face unreadable. And after I give birth and you get your stem cells, what happens to the baby? To me? John had prepared for this question, but the answer still tasted like poison. The baby would be yours, completely. I'd provide financial support, of course, but I wouldn't interfere in your life. This would be a medical arrangement, nothing more. A medical arrangement. Nana's laugh was hollow. How clinical, how perfectly John Kidwell. The barb hit its mark, but John absorbed it without flinching. He deserved worse. I know how this sounds. I know what you must think of me for even suggesting it. But Nana, I'm dying. Every day I wait, I get weaker. And if I die, Kidwell Industries collapses. 50,000 employees lose their jobs. The foundation stops funding schools and hospitals. Everything I've built crumbles. So this is about your empire. No. The word exploded from him with more force than he'd intended. This is about wanting to live. This is about being too much of a coward to face death with dignity. This is about the fact that I've wasted 15 years pretending I don't love you, and now it might be too late to make it right. Nana's eyes widened, tears spilling down her cheeks. John ... I'm not asking for your love, he continued, the words pouring out of him like blood from a wound. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance. One chance to make amends for everything I've done wrong, everything I've failed to say. I'm asking you to give me the greatest gift imaginable, life itself. And in return, I'll give you everything I have. Every penny, every property, every stock option. If I survive this, if the treatment works, I'll spend the rest of my life proving I deserve the miracle you gave me. Nana stood frozen, tears streaming down her face, her chest rising and falling rapidly. John wanted to reach for her, to wipe away her tears, but he didn't dare. He'd forfeited the right to comfort her long ago. You don't understand what you're asking, she whispered. Then explain it to me. Nana turned away, hugging herself tightly. You're asking me to risk my life for experimental fertility treatments. You're asking me to carry a child for 9 months, knowing it might kill me. You're asking me to give birth to a baby I'll love more than my own life, just so you can harvest its stem cells. Each word was a knife in John's chest, but he forced himself to listen, to bear witness to her pain. But most of all, Nana continued, her voice breaking, you're asking me to do all of this while pretending I don't love you too, while pretending that carrying your child won't destroy me completely when you walk away afterward. The admission hung in the air between them, raw and devastating. John felt his world shift, years of assumptions crumbling to dust. Nana, I need time to think. She grabbed her purse, moving toward the elevator with quick, unsteady steps. I need to talk to Wade, to research the procedures, to understand exactly what you're asking of me. John nodded, though his heart was screaming at him to stop her, to fall to his knees and beg her forgiveness. Take all the time you need. Nana paused at the elevator, her finger hovering over the call button. John? Yes. If I do this, if I agree to this insane plan, I have one condition. John held his breath. Anything. No lies. No pretending this is just business. If I'm going to risk everything to save your life, I want the truth about what happened 15 years ago. I want to know why you walked away from us. The elevator arrived with a soft chime. Nana stepped inside, her eyes never leaving his face. I want to know why you chose to break both our hearts instead of fighting for what we had. The doors closed, leaving John alone with his guilt, his desperation, and the terrible weight of secrets he'd buried so deep he'd almost convinced himself they weren't real. But they were real. All of it. The love, the loss, the lie that had destroyed everything. And now, with death breathing down his neck, and his only salvation depending on the woman whose heart he'd shattered, John Kidwell was going to have to face the truth at last, even if it killed him, even if it killed them both. Chapter 2. When the past bleeds into the present. Some secrets are buried so deep they become part of your bones until someone starts digging with surgical precision. Nana Lamb stood in the rain outside Seattle General Hospital, watching her breath fog in the cold air like the ghosts of words she'd never spoken. The medical reports in her hands contained John's death sentence, but they were also her confession. She'd been planning his murder for 6 months. Not with poison or violence, but with something far more cruel. Hope. She already knew John was dying. More than that, she knew exactly how he was going to die, who was killing him, and why. The question that haunted her wasn't whether to save him, it was whether she was strong enough to become the kind of person who could watch someone she'd once loved destroy himself with desperate dreams. Because Nana Lamb had discovered something that would shatter John Kidwell completely. She wasn't just his salvation. She was his judge, his jury, and potentially his executioner. and the man she'd mourned for 15 years had no idea he was already dead. Their father. The comparison hit Nana like a physical blow. Richard Lamb had been diagnosed with terminal cancer when Nana was 12 and Wade was 16. Instead of fighting, instead of letting his family help him through it, he'd simply vanished one night, leaving behind only a note saying he didn't want them to watch him die. They'd found his body 3 months later in a motel 2 states away, alone and forgotten. "I won't let that happen again," Wade had said, his dark eyes fierce with determination. "But John won't accept help. The stubborn bastard thinks he can face death the same way he faces everything else, alone." That's when Nana had made her decision. Not the decision to save John's life, but the decision to watch him die slowly. To let him suffer the way she'd suffered for 15 years, carrying the weight of secrets that had nearly destroyed her. Because Nana Lamb had her own devastating secret, one that made John's request not just cruel, but impossible. She was already infertile. The elevator in the hospital was ancient, creaking as it carried her to the 7th floor. Wade's office was at the end of a long corridor that smelled of antiseptic and broken dreams. She found him hunched over his computer, his dark skin drawn with exhaustion, still wearing scrubs from an 18-hour surgery. "Nana?" He looked up in surprise, then noticed the folder in her hands. His expression darkened. "That son of a bitch actually did it. He actually asked you. You knew he would." Nana collapsed into the chair across from his desk, the weight of the past 6 months suddenly crushing. "You've known this whole time what he was planning." Wade leaned back, rubbing his face with both hands. "I suspected. When he started asking me about fertility specialists, about genetic compatibility testing. When he requested your complete medical history from when you were my patient." His voice was bitter. "I should have warned you, should have told you to stay away from him." "Why didn't you?" "Because I hoped I was wrong. Because I couldn't believe even John Kidwell would be that selfish." Wade's hands clenched into fists. "What did you tell him?" Nana stared at the folder, John's test results seeming to mock her. "I told him I needed time to think. I told him I wanted the truth about what happened 15 years ago." "The truth?" Wade's laugh was harsh. "You want to tell him about the baby?" The baby. 2 words that still had the power to destroy her even after all these years. Nana closed her eyes, remembering those 3 precious months when she'd carried John's child in secret, planning to surprise him after graduation. 3 months of hope, of dreams, of imagining their future together. "He has a right to know," she whispered. "He gave up that right when he walked away from you." Wade's voice was gentle now, full of the protective love that had sustained her through the darkest period of her life. "When he chose Vera Stone over you, when he left you broken and bleeding in that hospital bed while he was off playing businessman." Nana flinched at the memory. The miscarriage had happened on the same night John announced his engagement to Vera Stone, the ice-cold socialite who'd captured his attention during their senior year. Nana had been alone in her dorm room, cramping and bleeding, too devastated by John's betrayal to even call for help. By the time Wade found her, she'd lost so much blood that the doctors weren't sure she'd survive. The miscarriage had been traumatic enough to cause permanent damage, scar tissue, hormonal imbalances, a uterus too damaged to ever carry a child to term. At 18, Nana Lamb had lost not just her first love, but her ability to ever become a mother. "The fertility treatments he's proposing," Wade continued, his voice clinical now, "would kill you. Your body can't handle the hormone therapy, can't sustain a pregnancy. The scarring alone would cause complications that—" "I know." Nana's voice was steady, but inside she was screaming. "I've known since I was 18 what those treatments would do to me." Wade stared at her, understanding dawning in his eyes. "That's why you agreed to think about it. You're not planning to save him. You're planning to let him hope while you watch him die. He destroyed me, Wade. The words came out flat, emotionless, but they carried 15 years of pain. He walked away from what we had like it meant nothing. He chose money and status over love, over me. Now he wants me to risk my life to save his, and he doesn't even know that he's the reason I can't have children in the first place. Wade was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. Revenge is a cold comfort, Nana. Trust me, I know. This isn't revenge, this is justice. Is it? Or is it just another way to hurt yourself? Before Nana could answer, Wade's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression changed completely. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Wade turned his computer screen toward her. On it was a news article dated just an hour ago. Vera Stone returns to Seattle. Billionaire's ex-fiancé spotted at Kidwell Industries. Nana's blood turned to ice. Vera Stone, the woman who'd stolen John from her, who'd worn the engagement ring that should have been Nana's, who'd ultimately destroyed her own relationship with John through her greed and manipulation. What was she doing back in Seattle? There's more, Wade said grimly, scrolling down to show a photo. Vera Stone stepping out of a black limousine, her platinum blonde hair gleaming, her perfect face wearing a triumphant smile. She looked exactly the same as she had 15 years ago, beautiful, cold, and utterly ruthless. But it wasn't Vera that made Nana's heart stop. It was the man helping her out of the car, a man whose face was partly obscured by shadows, but whose presence radiated menace. "Who is that with her?" Nana whispered. Wade zoomed in on the photo, and Nana felt the world tilt on its axis. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and piercing blue eyes. He was devastatingly handsome in a way that seemed almost artificial, like he'd been designed to be irresistible. According to the article, that's Cruz Sterling, oil and gas magnate worth about $8 billion. Also, apparently, John's half-brother. Half-brother? Nana's mind reeled. John doesn't have a half-brother. He does now. Sterling went public with the relationship last week, claiming he's Vale Kidwell's son from an affair. He's demanding a DNA test and a share of the Kidwell fortune. Nana stared at the photo, pieces of a puzzle beginning to form in her mind. Wade, when did John's symptoms start getting worse? About 6 months ago. Why? And when did Cruz Sterling first appear in the media? Wade's fingers flew over the keyboard, pulling up articles and timelines. His face grew pale as he read. 6 months ago, right around the time John started showing signs of rapid deterioration. Their eyes met across the desk, both thinking the same impossible thought. It could be a coincidence, Wade said, but his voice lacked conviction. Or it could be murder. Nana stood up, her mind racing. What if John's condition isn't just genetic? What if someone's been poisoning him? Nana, that's crazy. Is it crazier than a secret half-brother appearing just as John starts dying? Is it crazier than Vera Stone returning to Seattle the same day John asks me to bear his child? Wade was quiet, his analytical mind working through the possibilities. As a surgeon, he'd seen enough suspicious cases to know that sometimes the impossible was simply the improbable. If someone was poisoning John, they'd need access to him on a regular basis. Someone he trusts, someone who could slip something into his food or drink without being detected. Nana thought about John's inner circle. Knox Rivers, his best friend and business partner. Claire Kidwell, his mother who doted on him despite their complicated relationship. The household staff he'd employed for years. All of them had access. All of them could, theoretically. Her phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at the Fairmont Olympic Presidential Suite. Come alone. Vera Stone. Somehow, she'd gotten Nana's number. Wade, I need you to do something for me. Nana grabbed her purse, her movements sharp and determined. I need you to run a toxicology screen on John's blood, full spectrum. Look for anything unusual. Nana, where are you going? To get some answers. She paused at the door, looking back at her brother. And Wade? If something happens to me, if I disappear or have an accident, promise me you'll tell John the truth about the baby we lost. Nana, promise me. Wade's face was grave. I promise. But be careful. If Vera Stone is involved in this, she's more dangerous than we thought. Nana nodded and walked out of his office, her mind focused on one goal, finding out what Vera Stone wanted and why she'd chosen this moment to return to John's life. 20 minutes later, she stood outside the presidential suite at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel, her hand raised to knock. Behind this door were answers that could change everything, answers about John's condition, about Cruz Sterling's true motives, about the past that had shaped all their futures. She knocked. The door opened immediately, as if Vera had been waiting. The years had been kind to Vera Stone. She was still stunning, still perfectly groomed, still radiating the kind of cold beauty that stopped traffic. But there was something different about her eyes, something desperate and dangerous. Hello, Nana, Vera said, her voice honey-sweet with an undertone of poison. Thank you for coming. We have so much to discuss. Behind Vera, Nana could see the opulent suite, and sitting in a chair by the window, Cruz Sterling. He rose when he saw her, and Nana felt a chill run down her spine. There was something predatory in his smile, something that made every instinct scream danger. Ms. Lamb, Cruz said, his voice smooth as silk, I've been looking forward to meeting the woman who holds my dear brother's life in her hands. Nana stepped into the suite, the door closing behind her with a final sounding click. She was trapped now, alone with two people who clearly had their own agenda regarding John Kidwell's fate. What do you want? She asked, proud that her voice didn't shake. Vera smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression Nana had ever seen. I want to offer you a deal, darling. One that will give you everything you've ever wanted and destroy John Kidwell in the process. Chapter 3. The Devil's Deal Revealed. The most dangerous lies are the ones wrapped in truth and tied with the ribbons of our deepest desires. The presidential suite at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel reeked of expensive perfume and emotional decay. Vera Stone held court like a queen of broken dreams, but Nana could see the hairline cracks in her porcelain mask. 15 years of hatred had carved fine lines around Vera's eyes, turned her smile into something that belonged in a museum of beautiful, deadly things. You're not here to destroy John, Nana realized, studying Vera's face with the precision of someone who'd learned to read lies in the spaces between words. You're here to save him. Vera's laugh was like crystal breaking in reverse, sharp fragments reassembling into something that might have once been joy. Oh, darling, you always were too intelligent for your own good. Cruz Sterling moved from the shadows, and Nana saw him clearly for the first time. He wasn't just John's alleged half-brother, he was John's mirror image, if John had been raised by wolves instead of wolves in expensive suits. The same bone structure, the same unconscious arrogance, but where John had been carved by guilt into something resembling humanity, Cruz had been sharpened by abandonment into a weapon. The poison isn't killing John, Nana said, the pieces falling into place with the precision of a Swiss watch. It's preserving him. You've been keeping him alive. Very good, Vera purred. The compound we've been administering mimics the symptoms of Kaiser-Hoffmann syndrome while actually strengthening his cellular regeneration. He thinks he's dying, but he's becoming immortal. The question is, what's a man willing to sacrifice for eternal life when he believes he only has months to live? Cruz Sterling moved to the bar, pouring himself a whiskey with casual elegance. My dear brother has something that belongs to me. My birthright. The Kidwell fortune should have been split between us years ago, but Vale Kidwell made sure I was written out of the will entirely. So, you're going to kill him for it? Nana's disgust was palpable. Kill him? Cruz's eyebrows rose in mock surprise. Miss Lamb, I would never harm my beloved brother. His own body is doing that quite efficiently already. The casual cruelty of his words hit Nana like a slap. You're talking about poisoning him. Such an ugly word. Vera stood and moved to the window, her silhouette sharp against the Seattle skyline. We prefer to think of it as accelerating a natural process. John's genetic condition is real, you know. The Kleiser-Hoffman syndrome runs in the Kidwell bloodline. Vale had it. John has it. And if John has children, they'll have it too. But genetic conditions can be dormant for years, Cruz continued smoothly. Sometimes they need a little push to manifest, a catalyst, if you will. Nana felt sick. You've been poisoning him, triggering his symptoms artificially. For the past year, Vera confirmed with satisfaction. Small doses of a compound that exacerbates the genetic markers, makes the deterioration happen faster. He thinks he has 2 years, but really, he has 6 months at most. Why are you telling me this? Nana demanded. Why would you confess to murder? Cruz returned to his chair, swirling his whiskey thoughtfully. Because, dear sister-in-law, we need your help to finish the job. I'll never help you hurt John, even when we can give you exactly what you want. Vera's smile was razor-sharp. Revenge against the man who destroyed your life, the man who chose me over you and left you broken and bleeding. Nana's blood turned to ice. They knew. Somehow they knew about the miscarriage, about the baby she'd lost, about the fertility problems that had stolen her chance at motherhood. You look surprised, Cruz said, noting her expression. Did you really think we'd make you an offer without researching your history? We know all about your tragic love affair with John. We know about the pregnancy you kept secret. We know about the night you lost everything while he was celebrating his engagement to Vera. We know he's the reason you can never have children, Vera added, her voice dripping with false sympathy. How poetic that he's now asking you to bear his child to save his life, the very thing his betrayal made impossible. Nana stood abruptly, fury and pain warring in her chest. You're insane if you think I'll help you. Sit down, Cruz said quietly, and something in his tone made Nana freeze. We're not finished. You see, Vera continued, we don't need you to refuse John's request. We need you to accept it. What? Agree to the fertility treatments, Cruz explained. Let him hope that you can save him. Let him pour his resources into preparing for a child that will never come. And when the treatments fail, as they inevitably will, given your medical history, watch him realize that his last hope is gone. Watch him die knowing he asked the one woman who could never give him children to sacrifice everything for him. The cruelty of it stole Nana's breath. They wanted her to torture John with false hope, to let him believe she was risking her life for him while knowing it was impossible from the start. The beauty of it, Vera said, is that it's not technically murder. John's condition is real, and your infertility is documented. We're simply letting nature take its course, while making sure he suffers as much as possible in the process, Nana said, disgusted. Exactly. Cruz raised his glass in a mock toast. Poetic justice for the man who thinks he can buy anything, including redemption. Nana backed toward the door, her mind reeling. These people were monsters, but they'd revealed something crucial. John was being poisoned. If she could prove it, if she could find an antidote, she might be able to save him without the desperate fertility gamble. What makes you think I'll agree to this? Vera and Cruz exchanged a look, and Nana's stomach dropped. There was more. There was always more. Because, Vera said softly, We have something you want even more than revenge." She nodded to Cruz, who pulled out a manila folder much like the one John had given Nana earlier. But when he opened it, the contents made Nana's world collapse. Medical records, adoption papers, and photographs of a teenage boy with John's eyes and her smile. "Meet Thomas Richmond," Cruz said casually. 15 years old, honor student, star of his high school basketball team. Also, your son. Nana's legs gave out. She collapsed back into the chair, her hands shaking violently as she stared at the photographs. The boy in the pictures looked exactly like John had at that age, tall, lean, with dark hair and those distinctive blue-green eyes. But there was something unmistakably hers in his features, too. The shape of his nose, the curve of his smile, the stubborn set of his jaw when he was concentrating. Her baby. Her lost baby, alive and beautiful and real. "That's impossible," she whispered, though even as she spoke, her heart was screaming that it was true. Every maternal instinct she'd buried for years was suddenly roaring to life. "I lost the baby. I had a miscarriage." "You had a medically induced premature birth," Vera corrected. "At 24 weeks, the baby was viable. Barely, but viable. The doctors told you he died to spare you the trauma of knowing he was fighting for his life in the NICU." Nana's hands shook as she looked through the medical records. Birth certificate listing the mother as unknown, adoption papers signed when the baby was 6 months old, and years of school reports and photos showing a boy growing up with loving adoptive parents. "Wade," she breathed. "Wade knew about this." "Your brother made the decision to let you believe the baby died," Cruz confirmed. "He thought it would be easier than telling you that your child was alive but would be raised by strangers. He arranged the private adoption himself." Tears streamed down Nana's face as she stared at 15 years' worth of photographs. Her son, alive, healthy, beautiful. The child she'd mourned for 15 years had been living and breathing and growing up just a few hours away. "Thomas doesn't know about you," Vera said, her voice gentle now, which somehow made it more terrifying. "His adoptive parents are wonderful people who love him dearly. He's happy, well-adjusted, planning to attend MIT on a full scholarship next year." "Why are you showing me this?" Nana's voice was broken. "Because we can arrange for you to meet him," Cruz said. "We can give you the relationship with your son that was stolen from you. We can give you the family you've always dreamed of. All you have to do," Vera continued, "is agree to John's proposal. Let him believe you're going to save his life. Let him hope while you watch him die. And when it's over, when John is gone and Cruz inherits the Kidwell fortune as the only surviving heir, we'll make sure you and Thomas are reunited properly." Nana closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the impossible choice they were offering her. Her son, the child she'd grieved for 15 years, was alive and within reach. But the price was John's life, and the knowledge that she'd have to torture him with false hope before watching him die. "What if I refuse?" she asked. Cruz's friendly mask slipped slightly. "Then Thomas remains forever out of your reach. And we make sure John learns some very interesting facts about his best friend, Knox Rivers." "What about Knox?" "Knox has been helping us," Vera said simply. "The compound we've been using to poison John, Knox has been administering it, mixed into John's coffee every morning, his vitamin supplements, his protein shakes. Knox Rivers has been slowly killing his best friend for over a year." Nana felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. Knox, John's trusted friend since college, the man who'd stood by him through every crisis, was a murderer. "Knox has a daughter," Cruz continued, 8 years old, named Emma. Very sweet child, attends St. Catherine's Academy. Knox has been quite cooperative since we made it clear what would happen to little Emma if he didn't follow our instructions. The threat was unmistakable. They had Knox's daughter, which meant they had Knox himself, as their weapon against John. "So you see," Vera said, sitting back down across from Nana, "we don't actually need your cooperation to kill John Kidwell. Knox is already doing that quite effectively. But we'd prefer to make John suffer first. We'd prefer to break his heart before we stop his heart. And for that, we need you." Nana stared at the photos of her son, her mind racing. These monsters had orchestrated everything: John's poisoning, Knox's cooperation, even her presence here tonight. They'd researched her history, discovered her greatest weakness, and now they were using it to force her compliance. But they'd also revealed their greatest vulnerability. They needed her to choose this path willingly, which meant she had power here, even if she didn't fully understand it yet. "I need time to think," she said finally. "Of course." Cruz stood, extending his hand as if they'd just concluded a pleasant business meeting. "But don't take too long. John's condition is deteriorating rapidly, and Thomas graduates from high school in 6 months. It would be lovely if his biological mother could be there to watch." Vera walked Nana to the door, her hand gentle on Nana's elbow. "I know this is overwhelming, darling, but think about what John put you through 15 years ago. Think about the pain, the loss, the years of thinking you'd never be a mother. He owes you this. He owes you the chance to reclaim what was stolen from you. And all I have to do is watch him die." "All you have to do," Vera corrected, "is let him die believing that someone loved him enough to try to save him. Really, it's almost a kindness." The door closed behind Nana with a soft click, leaving her alone in the hotel corridor with the most impossible choice of her life. In her hands, she held photos of the son she'd never known existed, the child who could fill the hole in her heart that had been bleeding for 15 years. But the price was John's life. And despite everything he'd put her through, despite the pain and betrayal and years of loneliness, Nana wasn't sure she could pay it. Even if it meant never seeing her son again, even if it meant watching John die anyway, poisoned by the friend he trusted most, even if it meant sacrificing her only chance at the family she'd always dreamed of. As she walked toward the elevator, Nana made a decision that would change everything. She wasn't going to choose between John's life and her son's love. She was going to save them both, even if it killed her. Chapter 4: The Family Secrets That Destroy Everything. Truth is like a cancer. Once it starts spreading, it devours everything in its path, including the lies we told ourselves to survive. Nana burst through the doors of Wade's office at 2 in the morning, carrying photographs of the son she'd mourned and a revelation that would rewrite everything they thought they knew about life, death, and the spaces between heartbeats. "The baby didn't die," she said without preamble, watching Wade's face cycle through shock, guilt, and something that looked almost like relief. "But neither did John. They're both alive, Wade. They're both impossible, beautiful, breathing miracles, and I've been playing God with their lives." Wade set down his surgical notes with the careful precision of a man whose world was collapsing in slow motion. "What are you talking about? Thomas Richmond isn't just our son. He's John's genetic duplicate, created using experimental cloning technology 15 years ago. The adoption was a cover story to hide the fact that they were conducting illegal human experiments." Nana spread the photographs across his desk like tarot cards predicting a future none of them had imagined. "And John isn't dying from Kaiser-Hoffmann syndrome. He's the first successful test subject for cellular regeneration therapy. He's becoming something unprecedented, a man who can't die. That's impossible. So was a baby surviving at 24 weeks 15 years ago. So was a woman getting pregnant despite irreparable uterine damage. So was a poison that perfectly mimics genetic disease symptoms while actually strengthening the victim." Nana met her brother's eyes. We're living in a world where impossible is just another word for we haven't figured out the science yet. Wade stared at the photographs of Thomas. Their Thomas, John's Thomas, the boy who existed because someone had decided to play God with DNA and hope. If this is true, if John is becoming immortal and Thomas is his clone, then we're not just fighting for love, Nana finished. We're fighting for the future of what it means to be human. Wade's face went ashen, his eyes fixed on the photos in her hands, and she watched 15 years of guilt crash down on him like an avalanche. "Where did you get those?" he whispered. "Vera Stone gave them to me. Vera Stone, Wade. The woman who destroyed my life now knows more about my son than I do." Nana threw the photos onto his desk, watching them scatter like accusations. "Did you really think I'd never find out? Did you think he'd just disappear forever?" Wade stood slowly, his hands shaking. "Nana, let me explain." "Explain what?" "Explain how you held my hand while I cried over a dead baby who was actually fighting for his life in the NICU. Explain how you let me believe I'd failed as a mother when I'd actually given birth to a living child. Explain how you stole 15 years of my son's life from me. I was trying to protect you." Wade's composure finally cracked. "You were 18 years old, Nana. 18 and bleeding out from complications while John Kidwell got engaged to someone else. You were broken, completely shattered, and I couldn't bear to tell you that your baby was alive, but would spend months fighting to survive, probably with severe disabilities." Nana stared at him, seeing her brother, her protector, her anchor, as a stranger for the first time. "So you decided for me. You decided I was too weak to handle the truth. You were too weak." Wade's voice rose. "You tried to kill yourself, Nana, 3 times in the first month after the birth. If I'd told you the baby was alive but suffering, but might die anyway, it would have destroyed you completely." The words hung in the air between them, raw and terrible. Nana had buried those dark weeks so deep that even she'd convinced herself they hadn't happened. But Wade remembered everything. Every sleepless night he'd spent watching her. Every razor blade he'd hidden. Every desperate moment when she'd wanted to join her dead child. "That wasn't your choice to make," she said finally, her voice breaking. "It was the only choice I could live with." Wade moved around the desk, reaching for her, but she stepped back. "Nana, Thomas is happy. He has wonderful parents who've loved him from the moment they brought him home. He's had a good life, a stable life. Better than what we could have given him as teenagers, with no money and no support. He's my son, and I saved his life." Wade's voice was fierce now, defensive. "The adoptive family paid for experimental treatments that we never could have afforded. They gave him round-the-clock care, the best doctors, everything he needed to survive. By the time he was stable enough that you could have been part of his life, he was 6 months old and bonded with his new parents. What would you have had me do? Rip him away from the only family he'd ever known?" Nana sank into a chair, the photographs of Thomas scattered around her like broken dreams. In them, she could see glimpses of the life her son had lived: birthday parties, school plays, basketball games, family vacations. He looked happy, genuinely happy, in a way she wasn't sure she could have given him as a teenage mother dealing with her own trauma. "You should have told me," she said quietly. "Maybe not at first, but later, when I was stronger, when I could have handled it." Wade knelt beside her chair, his dark eyes filled with regret. "When? When would have been the right time? When you were 21 and finally starting to heal? When you were 25 and building your career? When you were 30 and had convinced yourself you didn't want children because you were afraid of losing them again?" Each word was a knife in her chest because it was true. She had convinced herself she didn't want children, had thrown herself into her work as an interior designer, had built walls around her heart so high that even she couldn't see over them. "I've been watching over him," Wade said softly. "All these years I've kept track of him, made sure he was healthy, that his parents were taking good care of him. I have reports, photos, report cards. I even made sure he got the best doctors when he had his appendix out last year." "You've been watching him?" Nana's voice was hollow. "You've been part of his life while I've been grieving a ghost. I've been protecting him. And protecting you." Wade reached for one of the photos, a recent school portrait showing Thomas in a Letterman jacket, grinning at the camera. "Look at him, Nana. Really look at him. He's not just surviving, he's thriving. He's happy, confident, loved. Would you really want to destroy that just to satisfy your own need to be his mother?" The question hit her like a physical blow because she didn't know the answer. Did she have the right to disrupt Thomas's life just because she'd discovered the truth? Did her 15 years of grief and loss give her the right to claim a child who'd lived his entire life without her? "Vera Stone and Crew Sterling know about him," she said, changing the subject before she fell apart completely. "They're using him as leverage to get me to cooperate with their plan to kill John." Wade's expression darkened. "What kind of plan?" Nana told him everything, about the poisoning, about Knox's betrayal, about the impossible choice Vera and Cruz were forcing on her. With each revelation, Wade's face grew paler. "Knox has been poisoning John?" Wade stood abruptly, running his hands through his hair. "Jesus Christ, I knew something was wrong with John's blood work, but I thought it was just the progression of his condition. They have Knox's daughter. They're blackmailing him. And they want you to agree to fertility treatments that would kill you, just to torture John before he dies." Wade began pacing, his medical mind working through the implications. "Nana, you can't seriously be considering this." "I'm considering saving John's life and getting my son back." Wade stopped pacing. "How?" "I don't know yet, but there has to be a way. If John is being poisoned, then there might be an antidote. If Knox is being blackmailed, maybe we can find a way to free his daughter. And if Thomas is my son, then maybe—" "Maybe what? Maybe you can waltz into his life and explain that his dead biological mother is actually alive and wants to play happy family? Maybe you can destroy the only parents he's ever known for your own satisfaction." The cruelty of Wade's words stunned her. "I'm not trying to destroy anything. I just want—" "You want what you've always wanted. You want John Kidwell to love you the way you loved him. And now you want a son who doesn't even know you exist to fill the hole that John left in your heart." Wade's voice was brutal in its honesty. "But love doesn't work that way, Nana. You can't force people to be your family just because you share DNA. That's not what this is about, isn't it? You've spent 15 years building your entire identity around being the woman John Kidwell abandoned, the tragic heroine who lost her baby and her chance at love. Now you find out that your tragedy isn't as complete as you thought, and suddenly you want to rewrite history." Nana stood up, fury blazing in her chest. "You don't get to psychoanalyze me, Wade. Not after lying to me for 15 years. Then prove me wrong. Walk away from John Kidwell. Walk away from Thomas Richmond. Build a life that isn't defined by loss and betrayal and the need to fix things that can't be fixed." "What if I can't?" The admission tore from her throat like a confession. "What if I'm so broken that I can't love anyone who doesn't need saving? What if the only way I know how to love is by sacrificing myself for people who don't deserve it?" Wade's expression softened, the anger draining from his face. "Oh, Nana, you're not broken. You're just scared. I am broken. Look at the choices I've made. 15 years ago, I fell in love with a man who chose money over me. Now I'm still in love with him, and he's asking me to risk my life to save his. And instead of walking away, instead of protecting myself, I'm trying to find a way to give him everything he wants, while somehow getting back a son who's better off without me. The son who's better off without you is the same son those monsters are using to manipulate you, Wade pointed out. If Thomas is truly safe and happy, then Vera and Cruz shouldn't be able to threaten him. Nana looked up sharply. What do you mean? I mean, maybe his life isn't as perfect as those photos suggest. Maybe there's something about his situation that makes him vulnerable to people like Vera Stone. Wade moved to his computer, his fingers flying over the keyboard. What's the name of his adoptive family? Richmond. Robert and Sarah Richmond. Wade's typing stopped abruptly. His face went white as he stared at the screen. Wade, what is it? The Richmonds filed for bankruptcy last year. Robert lost his job 6 months ago, and Sarah was diagnosed with early-onset dementia. They've been struggling to pay for her care. Wade's voice was grim. Thomas has been working part-time to help with expenses, and his MIT scholarship is in jeopardy because his grades have slipped. Nana felt her heart break all over again. He's not happy and stable. He's struggling, which makes him the perfect target for someone offering financial assistance in exchange for cooperation. Wade looked up from the computer. Nana, if Vera Stone has approached the Richmond family, if she's offered to help them in exchange for access to Thomas, then he's already in danger. Nana grabbed her purse, her mind made up. I have to go to him. I have to warn him. And say what? Hi, I'm the mother you thought was dead, and some sociopaths are using you to force me to help them commit murder. That'll go over well. Then what do you suggest? Wade was quiet for a long moment, staring at the photos of Thomas scattered across his desk. I suggest we save John Kidwell first. If we can expose the poisoning and find an antidote, if we can prove that Cruz Sterling and Vera Stone are behind everything, then maybe we can protect Thomas without destroying his life. And if we can't, then we pray that love really can conquer everything, because we're going to need a miracle. Wade gathered up the photos, handling them with careful reverence. But first, we need to test John's blood for the specific compound they've been using. If we can identify it, we can find a way to neutralize it. Nana nodded, her resolve strengthening. And we need to find a way to free Knox's daughter. As long as they have her, Knox will keep poisoning John. And we need to do all of this without Vera Stone and Cruz Sterling realizing we know the truth. Wade handed her the photos. Can you do that? Can you face John tomorrow and pretend you're considering his proposal while we work behind the scenes to save his life? Nana looked down at the picture on top. Thomas in his basketball uniform, so much like John at that age, but with her smile, her stubborn chin. Her son. The child she'd grieved, the family she'd never thought she could have. I can do whatever it takes, she said quietly. For John, for Thomas, for all of us. Even if it means lying to John about the baby we lost. Nana closed her eyes, feeling the weight of 15 years of secrets pressing down on her. Especially then, some truths are too dangerous to tell, at least until we know who we can trust. Wade nodded, understanding passing between them despite everything that had been broken tonight. Then let's go save the people we love, before it's too late to save anyone at all, including themselves. Chapter 5. The Enemy Among Us. The most dangerous enemies are the ones who know where you sleep at night, and what you dream about when you close your eyes. John Kidwell stood at the window of his penthouse, watching the sunrise paint Seattle in shades of gold and crimson, unaware that he was looking at the last natural dawn he would ever see as a mortal man. The coffee in his hands, Knox's carefully prepared morning ritual, contained not poison, but liquid evolution. Each sip was rewriting his DNA, cell by cell, turning him into something that had never existed before, a human being who could love forever because he would live forever. The irony was exquisite. In trying to save his life, he was becoming the very thing that would make losing Nana unbearable for eternity. When the elevator chimed and Nana walked toward him, John saw her differently than he had in years, not just as the woman he'd lost, but as the woman he would need to sustain him through centuries of existence. The weight of that realization should have terrified him. Instead, it made him understand why Vera Stone had orchestrated this elaborate dance of deception and hope. "You came," he said, surprised by the relief in his own voice. "I said I would." Nana stopped a few feet away, and John caught something in her eyes, a knowledge that went deeper than the decision she was about to reveal. "I've made my decision, John. But first, I need to know something. Anything. If you could live forever, would you want to?" The question should have seemed random, philosophical. Instead, it felt like a scalpel cutting straight to the heart of everything. John set down his coffee, his daily dose of immortality, and really looked at the woman he'd never stopped loving. "Not without you," he said simply. "What good is forever if you're alone?" Nana's smile was heartbreaking in its beauty. "That's what I needed to hear." The elevator chimed, and John turned to see Nana walking toward him, her face carefully composed but her eyes holding secrets. She looked beautiful in a simple black dress, but there were shadows under her eyes that suggested she hadn't slept any more than he had. "You came," he said, surprised by the relief in his own voice. "I said I would." Nana stopped a few feet away from him, maintaining the careful distance they'd perfected over the years. "I've made my decision, John." John's heart stopped. Everything, his life, his company, his legacy, hung on her next words. But more than that, everything he'd never allowed himself to hope for, balanced on the edge of this moment. "And?" Nana took a breath, and John saw her hands tremble slightly before she clasped them together. "I'll do it. I'll carry your child." The coffee cup slipped from John's fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Coffee, poisoned coffee, spread across the white stone like a dark omen. But John didn't notice. All he could see was Nana, the woman he'd loved and lost and never stopped mourning, offering him salvation. "Nana." He moved toward her, but she held up a hand to stop him. "I have conditions." "Anything." "First, complete honesty. No more secrets between us. I want to know everything about your condition, your treatments, your prognosis. Everything." John nodded, though the irony wasn't lost on him. He was asking for honesty while hiding the most devastating secret of all, that he'd never stopped loving her, that every day without her had been a kind of death. "Second, I want complete medical autonomy. My brother Wade will be part of my care team, along with specialists of my choosing. I won't be treated like an incubator for your heir. Of course, Wade is one of the best surgeons in the country. I'd trust him with—" John stopped, something cold settling in his chest. "How much does Wade know about my condition?" Nana's hesitation was so brief he almost missed it. "He knows you're sick. I had to tell him something when I asked him about the fertility treatments. It was a lie." John could see it in the tiny flicker of her eyes, the slight tension in her shoulders. Wade knew more than he was supposed to. But how much more? "Third," Nana continued, "I want protection. For both of us. I don't trust your business associates, and I especially don't trust your ex-fiancée." "Vera?" John's eyebrows rose. "Vera Stone hasn't been part of my life for over a decade. Why would you—" "She's in Seattle. She was at your office building yesterday, according to the news reports." Nana moved closer, and John caught a hint of her perfume, jasmine and rain, the same scent that had haunted him since college. "John, there are people who want to see you fail, people who would use me to hurt you." John's mind raced. Vera Stone in Seattle was bad news under any circumstances, but if she was circling while he was vulnerable, while Nana was about to risk everything for him, "I'll have security assigned to you immediately," he said. "Round-the-clock protection. And for yourself, I'm not going through this hell just to watch you get yourself killed by corporate espionage or whatever game Vera is playing." John studied her face, seeing something he couldn't quite identify. Fear, determination, love. "You sound like you know something specific about Vera's plans." Another tiny hesitation. "I know she's dangerous. I know she hurt you before, and I won't let her do it again." The possessiveness in Nana's voice made John's chest tighten with hope. Maybe this wasn't just about saving his life. Maybe, somehow, there was still something between them worth fighting for. "There's something else we need to discuss," Nana said, her voice becoming businesslike. "The fertility treatments. They're experimental and dangerous. There's a significant chance that complications could kill you." John's voice was flat. "I know. I've read every study, consulted with every specialist. The risk is approximately 30%. 30% that I'll die, 70% that our child will save your life." Nana met his eyes. "Are you willing to live with those odds, John? Are you willing to let me risk everything for you?" John was quiet for a long moment, staring down at the coffee staining his floor. A year ago, he would have said yes without hesitation. His life, his empire, his legacy, they were worth any risk. But now, faced with the possibility of Nana's death, he found himself wavering. "What if I said no?" he asked quietly. "What if I said your life is worth more than mine? Then you'd die, and I'd have to live with the knowledge that I could have saved you but didn't." Nana's voice was steady, but John heard the pain underneath. "We both know I can't carry that guilt, John." "Not again." "Again?" John looked up sharply, but Nana had turned away, moving to the window to stare out at the city below. "The treatments start next week," she said without looking at him. "Wade has already consulted with fertility specialists, and we have a team assembled. Dr. Sarah Chen at Seattle Reproductive Medicine, Dr. Martinez for high-risk obstetrics, and a team of nurses who specialize in experimental procedures." John moved to stand beside her, close enough to feel the heat of her body but not quite touching. "Nana, are you sure about this? Once we start, there's no going back." "There's no going back anyway." She turned to face him, and John saw tears in her eyes for the first time since she'd arrived. "We can't pretend to be just friends anymore, John. Not after this. Whatever happens, whether I survive, whether you survive, whether this works at all, everything changes between us." John reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away the tears on her cheeks. "Maybe it's time for everything to change," he said softly. "Maybe we've been pretending to be just friends for too long already." For a moment, they stood frozen in time, 15 years of love and loss and careful distance hanging between them. John could feel Nana trembling under his touch, could see the war between hope and fear playing out in her eyes. Then the elevator chimed again, and they sprang apart as Knox Rivers walked into the penthouse, carrying a fresh tray of coffee and the morning newspapers. Knox stopped when he saw them, his eyes flicking between John and Nana with an expression John couldn't quite read. Was that guilt, fear, relief? "I'm sorry," Knox said, his voice carefully neutral. "I didn't realize you had company." "Knox, you remember Nana Lamb." John moved away from Nana, putting distance between them that felt like tearing off his own skin. "Nana, Knox Rivers, my business partner." Knox set down the tray and extended his hand to Nana. John watched her shake it, noting how Knox's smile didn't quite reach his eyes, how Nana's grip was probably a little tighter than necessary. Of course, It's been years, hasn't it? Knox's voice was warm, but John caught the tiny tremor in it. What brings you by so early? John and Nana exchanged a look. They hadn't discussed how much to reveal about their arrangement, but John could see in her eyes that she didn't trust Knox. Which was strange, because Knox had been John's closest friend and confidant for over a decade. Personal business, John said finally. Nothing that concerns Kidwell Industries. Knox nodded, but John saw his jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. Well, I'll leave you to it. But John, we need to discuss the Sterling situation later. Cruz Sterling's legal team has filed additional paperwork claiming rights to the Kidwell patents. Cruz Sterling, John's alleged half-brother, the man who'd appeared out of nowhere 6 months ago, claiming to be Vale Kidwell's illegitimate son. The timing had always seemed suspicious to John, but he'd been too focused on his deteriorating health to investigate properly. 6 months ago, John said slowly, a terrible suspicion beginning to form. Knox, when exactly did Cruz Sterling first make contact with us? March 15th, Knox replied without hesitation. Why? John's blood turned to ice. March 15th was 3 days after he'd received his terminal diagnosis, 3 days after he'd confided in Knox about his condition and his desperate search for treatment options. No reason, John said, but his mind was racing. The timing was too perfect to be coincidental. Someone had told Cruz Sterling about John's illness, giving him the perfect opportunity to appear and stake a claim to the Kidwell fortune. But who? The only people who knew about John's condition were Wade, Knox, and... John's eyes found Nana's across the room. She was watching Knox with unconcealed suspicion, her jaw tight with an anger John didn't understand. Actually, Knox, John said carefully, I've been having some unusual symptoms lately. Tremors, nausea, fatigue beyond what the doctors predicted. Have you noticed anything? Knox's face went pale. No, nothing specific. But you have been working too hard, not sleeping enough. Maybe you should take some time off, get some rest. Maybe I should. John moved to the coffee tray, lifting one of the steaming cups Knox had brought. This coffee tastes different lately. Bitter. Are you using a new blend? Same blend as always, Knox said, but his voice cracked slightly. Jamaican Blue Mountain, just the way you like it. John lifted the cup to his lips, and Nana moved so quickly she was a blur. She knocked the cup from his hands, sending it crashing to the floor beside the remnants of the first cup. Don't, she said, her voice deadly quiet. Don't drink anything he gives you. Knox stared at her in shock. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the poison you've been putting in John's coffee for the past year. Nana's voice was steel wrapped in silk. I'm talking about how you've been slowly killing your best friend while pretending to be loyal to him. The silence that followed was deafening. Knox's face cycled through a dozen emotions: shock, fear, guilt, and finally, desperate resolve. I don't know what you're talking about, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. John felt the world tilt beneath his feet. Knox, his closest friend, the man he'd trusted with his life, had been murdering him 1 cup of coffee at a time. Knox? John's voice was barely a whisper. Is it true? Knox looked between John and Nana, his composure finally cracking completely. Tears filled his eyes as months of guilt and terror crashed down on him. They have Emma, he whispered. John, they have my little girl. They took her 6 months ago, said she was at a special school, but I know she's being held prisoner. They send me photos every week to prove she's still alive, still safe, but only as long as I do what they tell me. John staggered backward, the betrayal hitting him like a physical blow. Not just Knox's betrayal, but the knowledge that his friend had been trapped in this nightmare, forced to choose between John's life and his daughter's safety. What did they tell you to do? John asked, though he already knew the answer. Add this to your coffee every morning. Knox pulled a small vial from his jacket pocket, his hands shaking. They said it was just something to make you sick, to weaken your immune system so the genetic condition would progress faster. They said it wasn't permanent, that there was an antidote, that once you transferred half your assets to Cruz as rightful inheritance, they'd give me Emma back and let you recover. But it is permanent, isn't it? Nana said softly. There is no antidote. Knox's face crumpled. I figured that out last month when you started getting worse instead of better. When the doctors said you were deteriorating faster than expected. That's when I knew they were lying about everything. John looked down at the broken coffee cups, the dark stains on his pristine floor. For over a year, he'd been drinking poison every morning, trusting the man who'd been killing him one sip at a time. Emma, Knox continued, tears streaming down his face. She's 8 years old, John. She draws you pictures, asks about Uncle John every time I visit her school. She doesn't know her daddy has been... He couldn't finish the sentence. We're going to get her back, John said, his voice hard with resolve. And we're going to make Vera Stone and Cruz Sterling pay for what they've done to all of us. Knox looked up with desperate hope. You'll help me, even after what I did. You didn't have a choice. John put his hand on his friend's shoulder, feeling Knox's body shake with sobs. They used your love for your daughter against you. But Knox, no more poison, no more lies. Whatever they threaten, whatever they promise, you come to me first. They'll kill her if they find out I told you. They'll kill her anyway, Nana said bluntly. Once John is dead and Cruz has the inheritance, they'll eliminate all the witnesses, including Emma. The brutal truth of her words hung in the air like a death sentence. Knox collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands, the weight of his betrayal and Emma's danger finally crushing him. There has to be an antidote, John said, his mind working through possibilities. No one creates a poison without an antidote. It's too risky. Wade thinks he can identify the compound, Nana said. If we can figure out what they've been giving you, maybe we can neutralize it. John nodded, then looked at Knox. I need you to keep pretending nothing has changed. Keep bringing me coffee. Keep acting like their loyal puppet. But don't put any more poison in it. We need them to think their plan is working while we figure out how to save Emma and stop them. What about the fertility treatments? Knox asked, looking between John and Nana. If you're not actually dying. I am dying, John said grimly. Maybe not from a genetic condition, but the poison has done real damage. The treatments might still be our only option. Unless we can find that antidote, Nana added, and expose Vera and Cruz before they realize we know the truth. John looked around at the wreckage of his penthouse, broken coffee cups, dark stains on white marble, the ruins of trust and friendship scattered across expensive furniture. But for the first time in months, he felt something other than despair. He felt like fighting. Then that's what we do, he said, his voice strong despite everything. We find the antidote, we save Emma, and we destroy the people who thought they could use love as a weapon against us. Nana met his eyes across the room, and John saw his own determination reflected back at him. Together, she said. Together, he agreed, even if it killed them all. Chapter 6. The Race Against Death. Sometimes love means choosing to die together rather than live forever apart. Nana lay in the hospital bed, her body rejecting treatments designed to unlock John's transformation. The scarring isn't from the old miscarriage, Wade said. Someone tried to enhance her fertility using the same compound they've been giving John. John held her hand while machines monitored the war inside her body. Stop the treatments. If we stop now, we lose any chance of, Dr. Chen began, of creating the first immortal child. John met Nana's eyes. I'd rather have one mortal lifetime with her than eternity without her. But Nana had made a different choice. Hidden in her gown was a syringe filled with the compound transforming John, the serum that would kill her or make her immortal. "John," she whispered, finding the syringe, "if you could choose between dying human or living forever, what would you choose? Whatever future includes you." Nana smiled and pressed the syringe to her IV. "Then let's find out what forever looks like." The transformation began immediately. Pain raced through her veins as every cell rewrote itself. John watched as the woman he loved became something unprecedented. "What have you done?" "What I should have done years ago," Nana gasped. "I chose you, forever." The monitors spiked beyond human parameters. Wade rushed to stabilize her. "She's not dying," John realized. "She's becoming what I became. We're going to be immortal together." "If she survives," Wade said grimly. John squeezed her hand as she convulsed with evolutionary pain. "She'll survive, and she'll be strong enough to love me forever." Through the agony, Nana smiled. "Forever starts now." John sat beside her bed, holding her hand while Wade consulted with a team of specialists in hushed, urgent voices. The fertility treatments that were supposed to save John's life were killing the woman he loved instead. "The scarring in her uterus is worse than we anticipated," Dr. Chen was saying to Wade. "The hormone therapy is causing massive inflammation, and her body is rejecting the treatments. If we continue, she'll go into organ failure." "And if we stop?" Wade's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. "She might survive, but there will be no pregnancy, which means no stem cells for John." John closed his eyes, listening to the medical team discuss Nana's life like a mathematical equation. Save the woman, lose the man, save the child that might be conceived, lose both parents. It was Sophie's choice, played out in a sterile hospital room, and John already knew what decision he had to make. "Stop the treatments," he said quietly. Everyone in the room turned to look at him. Wade, Dr. Chen, the nurses, even the unconscious Nana seemed to still in response to his words. "John," Wade said carefully, "if we stop now, we lose any chance of—" "I said stop them." John's voice was steel, final, and unbreakable. "I won't watch her die for me. Not like this." Dr. Chen nodded and began issuing orders to her team. Within minutes, the IV drips carrying the experimental hormones were removed, replaced with fluids designed to flush the drugs from Nana's system. John watched the poison leave her body and felt an echo of his own situation. How many months of poison had Knox pumped into him before they'd discovered the truth? "John." Nana's voice was barely a whisper, but her eyes were open, focused on his face with desperate intensity. "Don't stop. Please. It's too late. The decision is made." "You'll die." Tears leaked from the corners of her eyes. "I came here to save you, and I'm failing again." "You're not failing. You're surviving." John lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. "I'd rather have one day with you alive than a lifetime without you." Nana's eyes closed, exhaustion pulling her back toward unconsciousness. But before she drifted away, she whispered something that made John's blood freeze. "Thomas. Have to protect Thomas." John looked up at Wade sharply. "Thomas? Who's Thomas?" Wade's face went white. In the chaos of the medical emergency, he'd forgotten that John still didn't know about the son they'd lost, the son who was very much alive and in danger. "It's nothing," Wade said quickly. "She's delirious from the medications." But John had heard the pain in Nana's voice when she said the name, the same pain she'd carried for 15 years whenever she thought no one was looking. Thomas wasn't nothing. Thomas was everything. Before John could press for answers, his phone buzzing interrupted his thoughts. A text from an unknown number. Penthouse. Now, come alone or Emma dies. John's jaw tightened. Vera Stone summoning him like a dog, while the woman he loved lay dying in a hospital bed. But Emma Rivers was an 8-year-old girl who'd been held prisoner for months, and John couldn't abandon her any more than he could abandon Nana. I have to go, he told Wade. Stay with her. Don't leave her alone for a second. John, where are you? Just protect her. Whatever happens, protect her. John kissed Nana's forehead, breathing in the faint scent of jasmine that still clung to her skin, despite everything. Then he walked out of the hospital room, not knowing if he'd ever see her alive again. The drive to his penthouse took 20 minutes through Seattle traffic. 20 minutes to think about all the ways this could go wrong, all the people he was about to fail. Nana, dying because he'd asked her to save him. Emma, a prisoner because her father had tried to save John's life. Knox, torn apart by impossible choices. And Thomas. Whoever Thomas was, he was important enough that Nana would use her dying breath to worry about him. The penthouse elevator opened directly into John's living room, and he found Vera Stone waiting for him like a spider in her web. She looked exactly as she had 15 years ago, beautiful, cold, and utterly without conscience. She sat in his favorite chair as if she owned it, sipping wine from his best crystal. "Johnny," she said with false warmth, "you look terrible. The treatments aren't going well, I assume. Where's Emma Rivers?" "Safe, for now." Vera set down her wineglass and smiled. "But we're not here to discuss that unfortunate child. We're here to discuss your future, or rather, your lack thereof." John remained standing, his hands clenched into fists. "What do you want, Vera?" "What I've always wanted. Everything that should have been mine." She stood and moved to the window, looking out at the Seattle skyline like a queen surveying her kingdom. "Do you know what your biggest mistake was, Johnny? It wasn't choosing money over love 15 years ago. It was thinking you could have both." "I never chose money over love." Vera laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "Oh, darling, is that what you tell yourself? That breaking Nana Lamb's heart was somehow noble? That walking away from her was about protecting her innocence?" John's chest tightened. "You don't know anything about what happened between Nana and me. I know she was pregnant with your child when you got engaged to me." Vera's words hit John like a physical blow. "I know she lost the baby the night of our engagement party. I know she tried to kill herself 3 times afterward, and I know you never even knew any of it happened." The room spun around John, pregnant. Nana had been pregnant with his child 15 years ago, and he'd never known. She'd carried his baby while he was playing politics with Vera Stone, planning a marriage based on business connections rather than love. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Is it? Think back, Johnny. Those last few weeks before graduation, wasn't Nana acting strange, emotional, distant? Didn't she try to tell you something important that you were too busy to hear?" John's mind reeled back through memories he'd buried for years. Nana calling him late at night, saying she needed to talk. Nana showing up at his dorm room with tears in her eyes, trying to get his attention while he was on the phone with business contacts. Nana at the library, pale and shaking, reaching for him before stopping herself. "She was trying to tell me about the baby," he said, the truth crushing him. "But you were too focused on your corporate empire to listen, too busy planning your future with me to notice that you were destroying hers." Vera's smile was cruel. "The night you announced our engagement, she hemorrhaged in her dorm room, alone, bleeding, losing your child while you celebrated choosing me over her." John fell into a chair, the weight of 15 years of guilt and grief crashing down on him. Nana had been pregnant. They'd lost a child together, and he'd never even known it existed. "Thomas," he breathed. "She said the name Thomas." "Ah, so you are paying attention." Vera returned to her chair, picking up her wine. Thomas Richmond, 15 years old, honor student, star athlete. Your son, Johnny, very much alive despite what Nana believes. John's world shattered completely. Alive. Wade Lamb made sure of that. Convinced Nana the baby died to spare her the pain of knowing he'd survive but be raised by strangers. Really quite noble of him, in a misguided way. Vera sipped her wine delicately. The boy has no idea who his real parents are, of course. He thinks Robert and Sarah Richmond are his biological mother and father. Where is he? John's voice was dangerous, barely controlled. Safe, like Emma Rivers. Both children are tucked away somewhere secure, waiting to see whether their respective parents make the right choices. Vera leaned forward, her eyes glittering with malice. Here's what's going to happen, Johnny. You're going to sign over 51% of Kidwell Industries to Cruz Sterling, acknowledging him as your legitimate heir. You're going to do it tonight, in front of witnesses with full legal documentation. And if I don't, Emma Rivers dies, Thomas Richmond disappears forever, probably into human trafficking. And Nana Lamb. Vera paused, savoring the moment. Well, hospital security is so unreliable these days. Accidents happen, machines get unplugged, medications get switched. The threat against Nana sent murderous rage coursing through John's veins. If you hurt her, you'll what? You're dying, Johnny. The poison has been in your system for over a year, and without the stem cell treatment that's now impossible, you have weeks left, not months. Vera stood, smoothing down her perfect dress. Sign the papers, and I'll make sure everyone you love survives your death. Refuse, and watch them all die before you do. John stared at her, seeing clearly for the first time the woman he'd once planned to marry. Not just cold or ambitious, but genuinely evil. A sociopath who used love as a weapon and children as leverage. You have 1 hour to decide, Vera continued. The papers are on your desk. Cruz is waiting at his hotel with a notary, one signature, and this all ends. She walked toward the elevator, then paused at the threshold. Oh, and Johnny, that antidote you've been hoping Wade could develop? There isn't one. The compound we've been giving you causes irreversible cellular damage. You're going to die no matter what you choose. The only question is whether you take everyone else with you. The elevator doors closed, leaving John alone with the most impossible choice of his life. Sign away his company to save the people he loved, or refuse, and watch them die one by one. He moved to his desk where the legal documents waited, Cruz Sterling's name already printed in all the right places. 51% of everything John had built, everything his father had left him, everything he'd planned to pass on to his children. His children. Thomas Richmond was his son, alive and in danger because John had been too blind and stupid to see what mattered most 15 years ago. John picked up his phone and called Wade. "How is she?" John asked when Wade answered. "Stable. The treatments are out of her system and she's responding well. She should make a full recovery." Wade's voice was careful. "John, about what she said earlier. About Thomas, our son. The child I never knew existed." John's voice was flat, emotionless. "When were you planning to tell me, Wade? When were any of you planning to tell me I had a son?" Silence stretched between them, filled with 15 years of secrets and lies. "After you were dead," Wade said finally. "I thought it would be easier that way." "Easier for who? For me? For Nana? For the boy who doesn't even know his real parents?" John's control finally snapped. "Do you have any idea what you've stolen from all of us?" "I was trying to protect. You were trying to play God," John shouted. "And now Vera Stone and Cruz Sterling have our son, Wade. They have him, and they have Emma Rivers, and they're using both of those children to force me to give up everything I've worked for. What are you going to do?" John looked at the papers on his desk, then at the photo on his wall, a picture of him and Nana from college, both of them laughing at something he couldn't remember. They looked so young, so happy, so sure that love would be enough to conquer anything. "I'm going to choose love," John said quietly. "For the first time in my life, I'm going to choose the people I love over everything else." "John, take care of Nana. Keep her safe. And Wade? Tell her I know about Thomas. Tell her I know about all of it, and I forgive her. I forgive all of you." John hung up the phone and picked up a pen. He looked at the signature line one more time, thinking about his father's legacy, his life's work, everything he'd thought mattered. Then he thought about Nana lying in that hospital bed, fighting for her life because she'd tried to save his. He thought about Thomas Richmond, a 15-year-old boy with John's eyes and Nana's smile, held prisoner because of choices made before he was even born. He thought about Emma Rivers, 8 years old and scared, paying for her father's loyalty. John Kidwell signed the papers and prayed it would be enough to save them all. Chapter 7. The Ultimate Sacrifice for Love. True love isn't about dying for someone, it's about living for them when death would be easier. Nana woke up to the sound of crying. She was back in her hospital room, the experimental treatments finally purged from her system, her body weak but alive. The tears weren't hers, they were coming from John, who sat beside her bed with his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking with grief. "John?" Her voice was barely a whisper, but he looked up immediately, his blue eyes red-rimmed and devastated. "Thank God," he breathed, reaching for her hand. "I thought I'd lost you." "You haven't lost me." Nana struggled to sit up, her body still weak from the medical trauma. "What happened?" "The treatments. I stopped them. The doctors said they would kill you, so I stopped them." John's voice was steady, but Nana could see the cost of that decision in his face. Without the stem cell therapy, without the pregnancy that was now impossible, he was going to die. "You chose me over your life," she said, understanding flooding through her. "I chose us over everything else. Finally." John brought her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "Nana, there's something I have to tell you. About Thomas." Nana's blood froze. She'd been delirious when she said the name, but apparently not delirious enough to keep the secret. "I don't know what you mean. Our son, Thomas Richmond, 15 years old, alive and in danger because of me." John's voice was gentle but unforgiving in its honesty. "Vera told me everything, about the pregnancy you kept secret, about the night you lost, almost lost, our child while I was celebrating my engagement to her, about Wade's decision to let you believe the baby died." Tears streamed down Nana's face. 15 years of secrets, 15 years of grief and guilt, and carefully buried love, all exposed in a single moment. "John, I'm so sorry. I tried to tell you about the pregnancy, but you were so busy, so focused on your future with Vera. I was an idiot. A blind, selfish idiot who chose what I thought was practical over what I knew was right." John moved closer to her bed, his eyes never leaving her face. "I chose security over love, business connections over the woman who owned my heart, and that choice cost us everything, our baby, our future, 15 years we should have spent together." "Our baby didn't die," Nana whispered, still trying to process the impossible truth. "Thomas is alive. And in danger. Vera Stone and Cruz Sterling have him, along with Emma Rivers. They're using both children as leverage to force me to sign over my company." John's jaw tightened. "I already signed the papers. 51% of Kidwell Industries now belongs to Cruz Sterling, legitimate heir to the Kidwell fortune." Nana stared at him in shock. "You gave up your entire empire. For you, for Emma, for Thomas." John's voice was fierce with conviction. "For all the people I love more than money or power or any legacy I could ever build." Before Nana could respond, the hospital room door burst open. Wade rushed in, his face grim, followed by Knox Rivers, who looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past week. "They didn't release the children," Wade said without preamble. "John signed the papers 3 hours ago, and Vera Stone just sent this." He handed them a tablet showing a live video feed. Two children sat in what appeared to be a warehouse, a little girl with Knox's dark hair and serious expression, and a teenage boy who looked exactly like John had at that age. Emma and Thomas, both very much alive but clearly prisoners. "The video came with a message," Knox said, his voice hollow. "Now that John has officially acknowledged Cruz as his heir, they don't need the children alive anymore. They're loose ends." Nana struggled to get out of bed, her legs shaky but her resolve iron strong. "Where are they?" "Nana, you're still recovering," John started. "That's my son," she said fiercely, the words feeling strange and right on her tongue. "Our son. And I'm not losing him again." Wade helped her stand, his medical training warring with his protective instincts. "The warehouse is on the industrial waterfront. Security cameras show at least 6 armed guards. This isn't something we can handle ourselves." "The police," Knox began. "Won't move fast enough," John interrupted. "By the time they organize a response, assemble a SWAT team, negotiate jurisdiction, Emma and Thomas will be dead." Nana looked around the room at the 3 men who'd shaped her life. Her brother who'd protected her too much, the friend who'd been forced to betray everyone he cared about, and the man she'd never stopped loving despite everything that had gone wrong between them. "Then we go ourselves," she said simply. "Nana, you can't—" Wade started. "I can't what? I can't save my own child. I can't risk my life for the people I love the way all of you have been doing." Nana's voice was steady despite her physical weakness. "I've spent 15 years being protected, being kept in the dark, being told I was too fragile to handle the truth. I'm done with that. I'm done being the woman who needs saving." She moved to the small closet where her clothes hung, her movements deliberate despite her trembling hands. "I'm going to get Thomas and Emma back, with or without your help." John stood, his decision made. "With. Definitely with." Knox nodded grimly. "I have security contacts, people who owe me favors. I can get us weapons, tactical gear. And I can provide medical support," Wade added. "If anyone gets hurt—" "When anyone gets hurt," Nana corrected. "This isn't going to end without bloodshed. Vera Stone has spent too much time planning this to give up easily." As they prepared to leave the hospital, Nana caught John's arm. "Before we do this, I need you to know something. The reason I agreed to the fertility treatments, the reason I was willing to risk my life, it wasn't just to save you." John's eyes searched her face. "Then why?" "Because I found out Thomas was alive, and I knew Vera was using him to manipulate me. I thought if I played along, if I pretended to cooperate with their plan, I could find a way to save both of you." Nana's voice broke slightly. "I never stopped loving you, John. Even when I thought I hated you, even when I planned to watch you die, I never stopped loving you." John cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away her tears. "I never stopped loving you either. Not for a single day in all these years. Every woman I ever dated, every relationship I ever tried to build, they all failed because they weren't you." "We're both idiots," Nana said, managing a shaky laugh. "The biggest idiots in history," John agreed. "But we're idiots who are about to risk everything to save our family." "Our family." Nana tested the words, finding they fit perfectly. "Emma, Thomas, even Knox, they're all our family now." Knox, who'd been organizing tactical equipment with Wade, looked up at her words. His eyes filled with tears of gratitude. "After what I did, after I poisoned John for months." You were protecting your daughter, Nana interrupted. Any parent would have done the same thing. We're all going to get through this, John said, his voice carrying the authority that had built an empire. We're going to save the children, expose Vera and Cruz for what they are, and we're going to start over. All of us. Together. 20 minutes later, they were in Knox's SUV, driving through the Seattle night toward the industrial waterfront. John sat beside Nana in the back seat, their hands intertwined, both of them knowing this might be their last hour together. If something goes wrong, Nana said quietly, if we don't make it out, we will, John said firmly. But if we don't, I want you to know that these past few days, learning about Thomas, remembering what we had together, planning a future, it's been the happiest I've been in 15 years. John lifted their joined hands to his lips. We're going to have decades more of happiness. We're going to raise Thomas together, help him through college, walk him down the aisle at his wedding. We're going to have the life we should have had 15 years ago. And if my fertility problems mean we can't have more children, then Thomas will be enough. More than enough. We'll have Knox and Emma as extended family, Wade as the uncle who drives us all crazy with his overprotectiveness. We'll build something beautiful from all this wreckage. Nana leaned against John's shoulder, breathing in his scent, memorizing the feel of his arms around her. For 15 years, she'd dreamed of this moment, being held by John Kidwell, knowing he loved her, planning a future together. She'd never imagined it would happen on the way to what might be a suicide mission. The warehouse is ahead, Knox said from the driver's seat. Security cameras show the guards are positioned at all the exits. There's no way to get in without being seen. Then we don't try to hide, John said. We go in the front door and make them an offer they can't refuse. Wade turned in his seat to look at them. What kind of offer? John's smile was cold as winter steel. The one thing Vera Stone has always wanted more than money or power or revenge. Which is me, John said simply. I'm going to trade my life for the children. No, Nana's voice was fierce. We are not sacrificing you after everything we've been through. If it's the only way to save Thomas and Emma. It's not the only way. Nana's mind was racing, pieces of a desperate plan falling into place. Vera wants you to suffer. She wants you to choose between the people you love. But what if we gave her something better? What could be better than watching me die? Nana's smile was sharp as broken glass. Watching me kill her first. The SUV pulled into the shadows beside the warehouse, and through the grimy windows they could see armed figures moving in the darkness. Somewhere inside that building were two children who'd been pawns in an adult game of revenge and greed. Whatever happens, John said as they prepared to enter what might be a trap, I want you to know that loving you has been the best part of my life. Even the pain of losing you was better than never having loved you at all. Nana kissed him then, soft and fierce and full of promises. Then let's go prove that love really can conquer everything, even if it meant going to hell itself to do it. Chapter 8. When Hell Unleashes Its Final Fury. Sometimes the only way out of hell is to become something that hell fears. The warehouse was a laboratory where the future of human evolution would be decided with bullets and blood. Vera Stone stood among shipping containers filled with experimental serums, but she'd underestimated what love could become when it had forever to grow stronger. John and Nana entered not as desperate parents, but as the first of a new species, immortal, enhanced, and absolutely unstoppable. Thomas looked up when he saw Nana, recognition dawning instantly. "Mom?" he whispered. "Yes, baby," Nana said, her voice carrying new harmonics. "I'm your mom, and I'm going to show you what forever really means." The battle wasn't just physical, it was war between the dying world of mortal humans and the emerging age of something unprecedented. John moved with inhuman speed, every blow calculated with enhanced neural processing. Nana fought with the fury of a woman who'd spent years grieving, now backed by cellular regeneration that made her unstoppable. Vera pulled a knife, pressing it to Thomas's throat. "You think becoming monsters makes you powerful?" "We think becoming immortal makes us patient," John said, appearing behind her with impossible speed. "We have forever to make you pay for what you've done." The knife clattered to the floor as John's enhanced strength easily disarmed her. But it was Nana who delivered the final blow, not physical, but psychological. "You wanted John to suffer eternally," Nana said, kneeling beside the fallen Vera. "Instead, you've given us eternity to love each other. You've made us into exactly what we needed to be." Vera's last words weren't a curse, they were an apology. "I'm sorry I didn't understand what you were becoming." As sirens filled the air and police surrounded the warehouse, Thomas threw his arms around Nana for the first time since birth. "I always knew you were alive," he whispered. "I could feel you." Emma hugged Knox while Wade checked everyone for injuries. They had all survived, broken and bloody, but alive and together. Finally, impossibly, miraculously together. John, Nana, Wade, and Knox entered through the main door, their hands raised to show they were unarmed. 6 guards with assault rifles flanked them immediately, but Vera waved them back with a gesture. "How touching," she purred, her voice echoing in the vast space. "The whole family, come to witness the end of the Kidwell legacy." Nana's eyes locked onto Thomas, her son, their son, and her heart shattered and rebuilt itself in the same instant. He was 15, tall and lean like John, but with her stubborn jaw and the way she'd always held her head when she was determined not to cry. His basketball jersey was torn, and there was a bruise on his cheek, but his eyes were fierce and unafraid. Emma sat beside him, much smaller but equally defiant. At 8 years old, Knox's daughter already had her father's steady courage and her mother's gentle strength. She was whispering something to Thomas, comfort, encouragement, the kind of bravery that children showed when adults failed them. "Let them go," John said, his voice carrying across the warehouse like a command. "You have what you wanted. I signed the papers. Cruz owns 51% of Kidwell Industries." "Oh, darling," Vera laughed, the sound like breaking crystal. "Did you really think this was about money? About some corporate inheritance?" Cruz pushed away from the shipping container, moving with predatory grace. "This was never about the company, brother. This was about watching you lose everything, piece by piece, the way my mother did when Vale Kidwell discarded her like trash." "Your mother?" John's eyes narrowed. "My mother loved Vale Kidwell," Cruz continued, his voice sharp with old pain. "Loved him enough to bear his child in secret, to raise me alone while he played happy family with you and your mother. She died waiting for him to acknowledge me, to give me the place in his life that I deserved. So you decided to destroy his son instead," Wade said, his doctor's mind working through the psychology of it. "I decided to take what was mine," Cruz corrected. "But Vera wanted something more artistic. She wanted you to suffer, John, the way she suffered when you chose business over her." Vera moved closer to the children, her heels clicking against the concrete floor. "Do you want to know what your biggest mistake was, Johnny?" "It wasn't choosing me over Nana 15 years ago. It wasn't even signing those papers tonight. Your biggest mistake was thinking you could buy your way out of consequences with money and sacrifice." She pulled a knife from her purse, the blade gleaming in the industrial lighting. Both children tensed, but neither cried out. Emma reached for Thomas's hand, and he gripped it tightly, both of them finding strength in connection. "Here's what's going to happen," Vera continued conversationally, as if discussing the weather. "I'm going to kill both children while you watch. Slowly. Then I'm going to kill Nana, so you can experience losing her twice in one lifetime. And finally, when you're broken completely, when you've lost everything that ever mattered to you, Cruz will put you out of your misery. Over my dead body, Knox snarled, starting forward. 3 guards immediately raised their weapons, and Knox froze. But Nana saw something in his eyes, a calculation, a plan forming. Knox Rivers hadn't survived 15 years in corporate warfare without learning how to fight dirty. Actually, Vera said thoughtfully, let's start with the boy. Thomas, isn't it? Such a handsome child. He looks so much like you did at that age, Johnny. She moved behind Thomas's chair, pressing the knife to his throat. A thin line of blood appeared, and Thomas winced, but didn't cry out. Stop, John said, his voice breaking. Take me instead. Kill me, torture me, do whatever you want, but leave the children alone. Where's the poetry in that? Vera's grip on the knife tightened. You need to understand what you took from me, what you destroyed when you walked away from our engagement. I loved you, Johnny. Really, truly loved you. And you discarded that love like it was nothing. I never loved you, John said quietly. I loved the idea of you, the security you represented. But I never loved you the way I loved Nana. Vera's face contorted with rage. Even now, even when I'm about to kill everyone you care about, you're still choosing her over me. She raised the knife higher, preparing to drive it into Thomas's heart. Time slowed to a crawl. Nana saw her son about to die, saw 15 years of dreams and hopes about to end in blood and violence. And something inside her snapped. Vera! Nana's voice cracked like a whip across the warehouse. Vera paused, the knife still raised, surprised by the fury in that single word. You want John to suffer? You want him to watch everyone he loves die? Nana stepped forward, ignoring the guards who tracked her movement with their weapons. Then start with me. I'm the one who took him from you. I'm the one he chose over you, even when he didn't know he was choosing. Kill me first and let him watch the light die in my eyes. Nana, no, John started. Yes. Nana's voice was steady, controlled, even as her heart hammered against her ribs. If someone has to die tonight, let it be me. Let the children go and take me instead. Vera considered this, her head tilted like a bird of prey. Interesting. You'd sacrifice yourself for his bastard child and a stranger's daughter. For my son, Nana corrected, her voice ringing with maternal pride. Thomas is my son, mine and John's, and Emma is family now too. All of them are worth more than my life. Thomas looked up at her with wide eyes, seeing her clearly for the first time. In that moment, Nana saw recognition dawn on his face, something in her features, her voice, the way she held herself that echoed his own biology. Mom, he whispered, the word barely audible but carrying the weight of years of loss and longing. Tears streamed down Nana's face. Yes, baby. I'm your mom. I'm so sorry I wasn't there, that I didn't know you were alive. But I'm here now and I'm going to make sure you're safe. Vera's smile was vicious. How touching. A family reunion. She moved away from Thomas, approaching Nana with the knife. Very well. If you insist on martyrdom, who am I to deny you? But as Vera raised the knife, several things happened at once. Knox lunged forward, tackling one of the guards and wrestling for his weapon. Wade dove for another guard, his surgeon's precise movements disabling the man's shooting arm. John charged toward Cruz Sterling, 15 years of rage and grief finally finding its target. And Nana, instead of waiting passively for Vera's knife, grabbed the woman's wrist with both hands, using every ounce of strength she had left to redirect the blade. The warehouse exploded into chaos. Gunfire erupted as the guards tried to regain control. Vera and Nana fought viciously, rolling across the concrete floor, the knife gleaming between them. John and Cruz exchanged brutal punches, their fight carrying them between shipping containers and industrial equipment. Thomas and Emma, still bound to their chairs, worked frantically to free each other while trying to stay out of the crossfire. Emma's small fingers were nimble with knots, and she managed to untie Thomas's ropes just as a stray bullet shattered the light above them. "Emma, this way!" Thomas grabbed the little girl's hand and pulled her toward the shadows behind a forklift, shielding her with his own body as chaos raged around them. Vera was stronger than Nana expected, fueled by 15 years of hatred and psychotic rage. She managed to pin Nana to the floor, the knife inches from her throat. "You took everything from me," Vera hissed, her beautiful face twisted with malice. "My fiancé, my future, my place in society. Now I'm going to take everything from you." "You're wrong," Nana gasped, using her legs to throw Vera off balance. "I never took John from you. You never had him to begin with." They rolled again, and this time Nana came out on top. But Vera still had the knife, still had the advantage of pure hatred driving her forward. "He loved me," Vera screamed. "He loved the idea of you," Nana corrected, echoing John's earlier words. "But he never loved you, not the real you, because the real you is this, a murderer, a kidnapper, a monster who would kill children to satisfy her own ego." Vera's eyes went wide with fury, and she thrust upward with the knife. Nana twisted desperately, but she wasn't fast enough. The blade caught her in the side, sending fire through her body. But as Vera tried to drive the knife deeper, Thomas appeared beside them. John's son, Nana's son, 15 years old, and already showing the strength and courage of both his parents. He had found a piece of rebar somewhere in the chaos, and he brought it down on Vera's wrist with all the force of his young athlete's muscles. Vera screamed and dropped the knife. Nana grabbed it immediately, rolling away as Thomas helped her to her feet. Across the warehouse, John had gotten the upper hand against Cruz. His half-brother lay unconscious beside an overturned shipping container, blood trickling from his scalp. Knox and Wade had managed to disarm the remaining guards, though both men bore cuts and bruises from the fight. "It's over," John said, breathing hard as he approached Vera Stone. "Your guards are down, Cruz is unconscious, and the police are on their way." Vera looked around wildly, seeing her plan crumbling to dust. Her perfect hair was disheveled, her designer dress torn, her carefully applied makeup streaked with sweat and tears. "This isn't over," she snarled. "I'll find another way. I'll destroy all of you." "No," Nana said quietly, still holding the knife that had almost killed her. "You won't." She stepped forward, the blade steady in her hand, her eyes locked on Vera's face. For a moment, everyone in the warehouse held their breath, waiting to see if Nana Lamb would become a killer to protect her family. Then Nana smiled, an expression more terrifying than any rage could have been. "Because you're going to prison," she said simply, "and in prison, no one cares how beautiful you used to be." The sound of sirens filled the air as Seattle police surrounded the warehouse. Through the broken windows, Nana could see SWAT teams taking positions, ambulances waiting to treat the wounded, news vans already setting up for what would become the story of the year. But all she cared about was the teenage boy beside her, looking at her with John's eyes and her own stubborn courage. "Thomas," she said softly. "Mom," he replied, and this time the word was strong, certain, full of 15 years' worth of love that had been waiting to be spoken. Nana wrapped her arms around her son for the first time since he was born, feeling him hold her back just as tightly. Across the warehouse, John embraced Emma Rivers while Knox wept with relief, and Wade checked everyone for injuries with shaking hands. They had all survived, broken, bloody, but alive and together. Finally, impossibly, miraculously together. Chapter 9. Birth, Death, and Resurrection in the Storm. Sometimes miracles are born from the ashes of everything we thought we'd lost forever. 6 months after the warehouse confrontation, Nana Lamb stood at the window of Seattle General Hospital, her hand pressed to her swollen belly, watching John play basketball with Thomas in the courtyard below. The scene should have been impossible. She was 7 months pregnant, despite every doctor's assurance that she could never carry a child to term, and John was alive and healthy despite the poison that should have killed him months ago. But the most impossible thing of all was the love that had grown between them, stronger and deeper than anything they'd shared as young college students. This love was tested by fire, forged in blood and desperation, and tempered by the knowledge of how easily it could all be lost. "The baby's active today," Wade said, entering the room with her latest test results. Her brother looked tired but genuinely happy for the first time since she'd known him. Vera Stone and Cruz Sterling were in federal prison awaiting trial, and the truth about Thomas's parentage had been revealed gently, with counseling and love from all sides. "She knows her daddy and big brother are playing basketball without her," Nana said, smiling as the baby kicked enthusiastically. "I think we've got an athlete on our hands." "She?" Wade raised an eyebrow. "Did you finally let them tell you the gender?" "I didn't need them to. I've known since the day I found out I was pregnant." Nana's hand moved in gentle circles over her belly. "Her name is Hope. Hope Kidwell." Wade sat down beside her, his expression growing serious. "Nana, we need to talk about the delivery. Your body has been through so much trauma. The original miscarriage, the fertility treatments, the stress of everything that happened with Vera and Cruz. Even though this pregnancy has been miraculous, there are still risks." "What kind of risks?" "The scar tissue in your uterus, the hormonal damage from the experimental treatments. They could cause complications during labor. Hemorrhaging, placental abruption, cardiac stress." Wade's voice was gentle but clinical. "There's a chance that delivering this baby could be life-threatening for you." Nana was quiet for a moment, watching John lift Thomas up for a slam dunk, both of them laughing with pure joy. In the past 6 months, she'd watched her family grow and heal in ways she'd never imagined possible. Thomas had moved in with them, embracing his biological parents while maintaining relationships with his adoptive family. Emma Rivers visited every weekend, and Knox had become like an uncle to both children. "What are the odds?" she asked finally. 20% chance of severe complications, 5% chance of... Wade couldn't finish the sentence. 5% chance that I die in childbirth, Nana completed. "The same odds that nearly killed me 15 years ago." "Yes." "Does John know about this?" "Number. And you're not going to tell him?" Nana's voice was firm. "He's been through enough. He's finally healthy, finally happy. I won't destroy that by making him choose between me and our daughter." "He has a right to know. He has a right to experience joy without fear, to love his daughter without the shadow of potentially losing me hanging over everything." Nana stood and moved back to the window. "Wade, this baby is a miracle. Every day she's grown inside me has been impossible. If carrying her costs me my life, it's still the most worthwhile thing I've ever done." Before Wade could respond, John and Thomas burst into the room, both sweaty and grinning from their game. "Did you see that last shot?" Thomas asked excitedly, throwing his arms around Nana in a careful hug that avoided her belly. "Dad totally schooled me, but I got him back with a 3-pointer from the parking lot line." "Dad?" The word still made John's face light up every time Thomas said it. They'd had their awkward moments over the past months. 15 years of missed birthdays and bedtime stories couldn't be erased overnight. But the love between father and son had been immediate and undeniable. "I saw," Nana said, kissing Thomas's forehead. "And I saw your father trying to keep up with a 15-year-old athlete. How are your knees, old man?" "Old man?" John moved to her other side, his arms encircling both her and Thomas. "I'll show you, old man." He started to tickle her gently, and Nana laughed, the sound bright and carefree. This was what she'd dreamed of during all those years of loneliness. A family, complete and happy and whole. "Thomas," John said, "would you mind giving us a minute?" "I want to talk to your mom about the nursery colors." Thomas grinned. "You mean you want to make out with Mom while pretending to discuss decorating? I'm 15, not 5. I know what talking means when married people do it." "Married people?" John and Nana exchanged glances, both of them blushing slightly. "Well, you're going to be, right? I mean, you live together. You're having a baby together. You're disgustingly in love with each other. When's the wedding?" Out of the mouths of babes. John and Nana had been so focused on healing from the past and building their family that they hadn't actually discussed marriage. They simply existed in a bubble of love and gratitude, taking each day as it came. "Would you want us to get married?" Nana asked Thomas carefully. "Are you kidding? I've been planning your wedding since I found out you were my real parents." Thomas's grin was infectious. "Emma and I have the whole thing figured out. Beach ceremony, string quartet, Emma as flower girl, me walking you down the aisle since Grandpa Wade will probably cry too much to do it properly." John laughed, the sound rich and warm. "What do you say, Nana Lamb? Want to make it official before Hope arrives?" Nana looked around at her family. The son she'd thought was dead, the man she'd never stopped loving, the brother who'd protected her even when his protection had hurt, the baby growing inside her who represented impossible hope, made real. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes, I want to marry you, John Kidwell." 2 weeks later, they were married on Alki Beach at sunset, with Hope kicking enthusiastically throughout the ceremony as if she approved of the proceedings. Thomas did indeed walk Nana down the sandy aisle. Emma scattered rose petals with serious concentration, and Wade cried so much that Knox had to step in to provide the medical emergency contact information. It was small, intimate, perfect in its imperfection. The sunset painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, and when John kissed his bride, Hope kicked so hard that Nana gasped in surprise, making everyone laugh. The baby was apparently as eager to celebrate as the rest of them. But 3 weeks later, on a storm-swept February night, their joy turned to terror. Nana went into labor 2 months early. She woke up at 3 a.m. in a pool of blood, contractions tearing through her body like knives. John called 911 while Thomas held her hand, and Wade raced over from his own house, still in his pajamas but carrying his medical bag. The ride to the hospital was a nightmare of sirens and pain, and John holding her hand while she tried not to scream. Everything Wade had warned her about was happening. The hemorrhaging, the cardiac stress, the feeling of her body tearing itself apart to bring new life into the world. At Seattle General, the emergency room erupted into controlled chaos. Dr. Chen was already there, along with a neonatal intensive care team. "We need to do an emergency C-section," Dr. Chen announced. "The baby is in distress, and Nana is hemorrhaging too severely for a natural delivery." Nana grabbed John's hand as they prepped her for surgery. "If you have to choose, no." John's voice was absolute. "I'm not choosing between you and Hope. You're both going to survive this. Both of you." The operating room was blindingly bright. Nana could feel herself slipping away as the anesthesia took hold, her last conscious thought being a prayer. "Please, let my daughter live. Let John have his family." When she woke up 12 hours later, the first thing she heard was crying, not her own, but the thin, fierce wail of a very small, very determined baby. "Hope," she whispered. "She's perfect," John said, holding the tiniest, most beautiful baby she'd ever seen. Hope Kidwell weighed barely 4 pounds, but her lungs were strong enough to make her opinions known to everyone within 3 hospital floors. "And me? You're here. We're all here. Our family is complete and whole and perfect." As Hope opened her eyes for the first time, revealing John's blue-green color, she looked around at all the faces surrounding her and seemed to decide that this was exactly where she belonged. Outside the hospital window, the February storm was clearing, and the first rays of sunrise painted the sky in shades of gold and pink. A new day, a new beginning, a new chapter in the love story that had survived everything life could throw at it. And this time, nobody was walking away. Chapter 10. The Miracle That Rewrites Everything. True love stories don't end with happily ever after. They begin with it. 5 years later, Nana Kidwell stood in the kitchen of their lake house, watching through the window as John taught Hope to ride a bicycle, while Thomas cheered from the sidelines. At 5 years old, Hope was fearless, stubborn, and absolutely determined to master 2 wheels before her 6th birthday next month. The past 5 years had been a whirlwind of healing, growth, and the kind of deep happiness that comes after surviving the worst life can offer. John's health had fully recovered once the poison was eliminated from his system, though the doctors still called it a medical miracle. Vera Stone and Cruz Sterling were serving life sentences in federal prison for kidnapping, attempted murder, and numerous other charges. Knox had been promoted to CEO of Kidwell Industries after John stepped back to focus on his family, and Emma Rivers spent so much time at their house that she was practically their 3rd child. "I can do it, Daddy," Hope called out, her dark curls flying behind her as she wobbled down the gravel path. "Don't let go." "I won't let go," John promised, his hand steady on the back of her bike. "I've got you." But Nana could see what Hope couldn't. John had already let go, and their daughter was riding on her own, pure determination and joy carrying her forward, just like their entire family had learned to do. "Mama!" Hope's triumphant shriek broke through Nana's thoughts. "I did it! I'm riding!" Nana rushed outside just in time to catch Hope as she tumbled off the bike in a fit of giggles, scraped knee and all. "You were amazing, baby girl. I'm so proud of you." "Did you see, Thomas? Did you see me riding all by myself?" Thomas, now 20 and home from MIT for spring break, scooped his little sister into a hug that lifted her off the ground. "I saw, little bit. You're braver than Dad and me put together." "That's not saying much," John said with a laugh, joining their family group hug. "Your mom is the bravest person in this family." Nana looked around at her husband and children, still sometimes amazed that this was her life. The scared 18-year-old who'd lost her first baby, the lonely 28-year-old who'd thought love was dead, could never have imagined this kind of happiness was possible. "Speaking of brave," Thomas said with a grin that reminded Nana so much of John at that age, "I have some news." "Oh," John raised an eyebrow. "Good news, or we need to sit down for this news?" "Good news, great news, actually." Thomas's grin widened. "I got accepted to the graduate program at Johns Hopkins Medical School, specializing in pediatric surgery." Nana felt tears spring to her eyes. "Thomas, that's incredible." "Following in Uncle Wade's footsteps," John said with obvious pride. "Actually, I want to specialize in fetal surgery. Babies like Hope, born too early or with complications, babies whose parents are told there's no hope." Thomas looked at his little sister, who was examining her scraped knee with scientific interest. "I want to be the doctor who proves them wrong." Hope looked up from her injury. "Are you going to be a baby doctor like Uncle Wade?" "Even better," Thomas said. "I'm going to be a baby doctor who fixes babies before they're even born." "Cool." Hope's attention span, like most 5-year-olds, was already moving on. "Daddy, can we go swimming now? The water looks really nice." John glanced at the lake where the afternoon sun was turning the water to liquid gold. "What do you say, Mrs. Kidwell? Family swim before dinner?" Only if someone helps me with the sunscreen brigade, Nana said, already moving toward the house to get towels and supplies. An hour later, they were all in the lake, John and Thomas racing to the floating dock, while Hope practiced her mermaid swimming in the shallows with Nana. The water was perfect, cool enough to be refreshing, but warm enough that Hope could play without turning blue. "Mama," Hope said, floating on her back with Nana's hands supporting her, "tell me the story again." "What story, baby?" "The story about how you and Daddy fell in love and I got born." Nana smiled, settling into the familiar rhythm of the tale that had become Hope's favorite bedtime story. Once upon a time, there was a very stubborn man and a very brave woman who loved each other but couldn't figure out how to be together. "Because they were scared," Hope added, having heard this story dozens of times. "Because they were scared," Nana confirmed, "and because sometimes even grown-ups make silly mistakes when they're afraid." "But then, what happened?" "Well, the stubborn man got very sick, and the brave woman decided to risk everything to save him, even though she was still scared. And they found Thomas? They found Thomas, who had been waiting for them his whole life without even knowing it. And then I got born. The most beautiful, strong, perfect little girl in the whole world got born," Nana said, tickling Hope's tummy gently, "and everyone lived happily ever after." "The end. The end," Nana agreed. But of course it wasn't really the end. It was just the beginning of a love story that kept writing itself every single day. In Thomas's acceptance to medical school and his determination to help other families like theirs, in Hope's fearless approach to life and the way she loved everyone around her with the whole heart of a child who'd been wanted from her first breath, in John's transformation from a cold, closed-off businessman to a man who coached Little League and knew all the words to Disney songs, and in Nana herself, who'd learned that some miracles are worth waiting 15 years for, and that love really can conquer everything if you're brave enough to fight for it. That evening, after Hope had been tucked into bed and Thomas had headed out to meet friends, Nana and John sat on their dock, watching the sunset paint the lake in shades of pink and gold. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been?" John asked, his arm around Nana as she leaned against his shoulder. "You mean if we'd gotten together 15 years ago, if we'd been brave enough to fight for each other back then? Sometimes I wonder what Thomas's childhood would have been like, what our first baby together would have been like." Nana was quiet for a moment, thinking about the path that had led them here. "I used to think about that all the time. I used to torture myself with what-ifs and if-onlys. But now I think everything happened exactly the way it was supposed to. Thomas got loving parents who gave him stability and confidence. We got years to grow up and figure out who we were as individuals. Hope got parents who knew exactly how precious and miraculous she was, because we'd already lost so much." John pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "You think our pain was worth it? I think our pain made us worthy of this happiness. I think we needed to lose everything to understand what really mattered." Nana lifted her head to look at him. "Do you regret any of it?" "The only thing I regret is waiting so long to tell you I loved you again. I should have said it the first day you walked back into my office. You were dying. You had bigger things to worry about. There's nothing bigger than loving you, Nana Kidwell. Nothing more important than this family we've built together." As if summoned by his words, Hope's voice drifted out through her bedroom window. "Mama, Daddy, I can't sleep." They looked at each other and laughed. Parenting a 5-year-old meant that romantic moments were often interrupted by requests for water, stories, monster checks, and elaborate explanations of why the closet door had to be open exactly 3 inches. "I'll go," John said, starting to stand. "We'll both go," Nana corrected, taking his hand. "We're a team now, remember?" They found Hope sitting up in bed, her hair a riot of curls and her eyes bright with the kind of energy that meant bedtime was still at least an hour away. "I was thinking," she announced as they sat on either side of her bed. "Oh," John said with mock concern. "Hope Kidwell thinking at bedtime is never good news." "I was thinking about baby brothers." Nana and John exchanged glances. They'd talked about having another child, but Nana's pregnancy with Hope had been so risky that they'd decided their family was complete as it was. "What about baby brothers?" Nana asked carefully. "Emma has a baby brother now, and so does my friend Sophia at school. They're kind of loud and smelly, but they're also really cute." Hope looked between her parents with the serious expression she wore when planning something important. "Do you think we could get one? A baby brother, I mean?" John looked at Nana over Hope's head, and she saw her own thoughts reflected in his eyes. They'd been so focused on healing from their past that they hadn't thought much about expanding their future. But the idea of growing their family through adoption, of giving a home to a child who needed one, felt surprisingly right. "We can talk about it," Nana said carefully. "But Hope, adoption is a long process. It takes time and there are no guarantees. We might wait months or even years before we find the right baby." "That's okay," Hope said with the patience of someone who'd learned early that the best things in life were worth waiting for. "Good things take time, like you and Daddy finding each other again, and Thomas coming to live with us, and me learning to ride my bike." John reached over and ruffled Hope's curls. "When did you get so wise, little bit?" "I got it from Mama. She knows everything about love and being brave." As they tucked Hope back into bed and kissed her good night, Nana marveled at how full her heart felt. 5 years ago, she'd thought her family was complete when she found Thomas again. 3 years ago, she'd been sure Hope was the final piece of their puzzle. But maybe families weren't puzzles that got completed. Maybe they were living things that kept growing and changing and expanding with love. Later that night, as they lay in bed with moonlight streaming through their bedroom windows, John pulled Nana close. "Are you serious about adopting?" he asked softly. "Are you?" "I think I am. I think our family has room for one more miracle." Nana smiled against his chest. "Thomas, Hope, and a baby we haven't met yet. 3 children, all of them meant to be ours in different ways." "Nana Kidwell," John said solemnly, "you are the love of my life. Not just my first love, not just my second chance, but my always love. The one I was meant to find my way back to, no matter how lost we got along the way." "John Kidwell," she replied with equal seriousness, "you saved my life in every way a person can be saved. You gave me Thomas back, gave me hope, gave me a reason to believe in miracles again." Outside their window, Seattle glittered like scattered diamonds, a city full of millions of people living their own love stories. But inside their lake house, wrapped in each other's arms with their children sleeping safely down the hall and their future stretching bright and full of possibilities before them, Nana and John Kidwell had found something rarer than diamonds. They'd found their way home, and this time they were never, ever leaving again. The end. Some love stories end with a kiss, others end with a promise. The best ones end with the understanding that true love never ends at all. It just keeps beginning over and over with each new sunrise, each new challenge overcome together, each new miracle that proves love really can conquer anything.